In today's video, we're talking about the idea of whether or not we should jump into keto or we should ease our way into keto. And I'm going to talk about some interesting ideas and then tell you how I feel like these ideas affect what you're trying to accomplish. Hello everyone, welcome to Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet. The reason I make these videos is to help people to understand that their physical health and their mental health come together to create your overall feeling of well-being. If you find this kind of information helpful, consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my videos. Unfortunately, in the beginning of a ketogenic lifestyle, when people are trying to wrap their mind around what it means to live a ketogenic lifestyle, everything seems to be about what you're giving up, what foods you're not allowed to eat, what things you're no longer going to be able to indulge in. So no more chocolate, no more candy, no more cake, no more chips, no more French fries. Everybody's so focused on, I'm not going to be able to have this food anymore. I can't eat bread. Oh my God. We're so focused on what we're not able to have, and it becomes a very scary idea to live a ketogenic lifestyle. The fact that when you learn that in a ketogenic lifestyle, we eat 20 grams of carbs or less per day, and the first thing that comes out of your mouth is, I can't give up X, that helps us to understand that you're addicted to carbs. You see, if I wasn't addicted to something, the idea of not eating it for a period of time or maybe even ever again wouldn't bother me, right? The idea of not having a cigarette doesn't bother me because I'm not addicted to cigarettes. The idea of not having alcohol doesn't bother me because I'm not addicted to alcohol. And the idea of not having cake, traditional cake, ever again, doesn't bother me because I'm not addicted to carbs. But when we start off this story, most people are. I was. Now, luckily for me, my situation was such that I was so focused on getting rid of my hip pain that the idea of giving up bread, the idea of giving up fries, the idea of giving up these foods wasn't scary to me because what I was living was scarier. But most people aren't in my situation. So I want you to consider that if really the idea of being healthier versus the idea of giving up a food, you're actually looking at staying unhealthy because you can't give up a food, well, that means that you're addicted to the food. Because being healthy means long-term longevity. Being healthy means being able to do what I want to do with my body. It means not having metabolic issues. It means living a good life. And if I would give up all of that for a cookie, I have to ask myself, what's happening there? Unfortunately, we also use food as emotional support. So this contributes to why people have a hard time with the idea of a ketogenic lifestyle. When we think about the fact that if I'm sad, I wouldn't be able to eat my comfort foods. If I felt lonely, I wouldn't be able to eat my comfort foods. What about when I have a celebration? I wouldn't be able to eat my fun foods. The fact that emotionally we are so tied to what we're eating contributes to the part where we have a hard time imagining not eating a certain way because we're doing a ketogenic lifestyle. We have a hard time feeling left out. That's the other part of the story, right? Peer pressure and feeling connected, feeling like everybody else. When we go to any social event, there's always food. Whether it's celebrating a birthday, whether it's engaging in some kind of holiday, social events for us are usually around food. And so the other problem that happens for many, many people is it becomes really hard to understand, how will I do birthdays? How will I do celebrations? How will I do anniversary meals? How will I go to a restaurant and be around other people if I'm not eating what everybody else is eating? There's peer pressure there. There's wanting to be like everybody else there. Unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily align with the health that we're trying to achieve. These are things that block us from being able to really easily adopt a ketogenic lifestyle. I mentioned peer pressure earlier, and I feel like there's more to it than that, because there's also the people around me who don't understand what I'm trying to do will push me to eat what they're eating. Right? There's a party going on. Why aren't you having cake? Have some cake. Now, maybe they're doing that because they don't understand, but also sometimes people are doing it because it's easier to sabotage what you're doing than to really reflect on what I'm doing. And so if I'm eating cake and I have weight to lose, I might not want to face the truth that I probably shouldn't be eating this cake. If I'm eating cake and I have diabetes, I might not want to face the truth that I probably shouldn't be eating this cake. So sometimes it's easier for people to sabotage my progress than to question what they're doing. And I want everyone to understand that this is your health. If you've decided to do something, it doesn't matter if you're at a party, it doesn't matter if you're at home, it doesn't matter if you're at a restaurant. If you've decided to do something, then follow through with it, especially if it's for your better health. We're wellness warriors, and we need to keep it in mind that as a warrior, it's for me to defend what my health is going to look like now and in the future. It's important for us to recognize that our body is either burning carbs or burning fat. It doesn't do both of those things at the same time. So when we ingest carbs, along with other things, like we usually eat carbs along with protein and fat, when we ingest carbs, then our body will prioritize using carbs because A, we can't have excess carbohydrates in our blood, but also B, because glycogen, so the glycogen storage that we have, is easier to access than the fat storage. It takes more energy. When our glycogen storage becomes low, not empty completely, but low, then our body will switch over to pull some energy from the fat storage. We need to keep it in mind that on a regular basis, our glycogen storage after we've eaten is plentiful. So if we eat a large amount of carbs, then we keep that full. That would mean it would be very rare that we would go into our fat storage. When it gets low, then we go into our fat storage. What this means is that when we ease into keto, there's going to be a point at which we're not eating as much carbs as we used to eat. So we don't have as much to fuel our body as we used to. At the same time, we still have too much that our body would dip into fat storage. In that scenario, it's possible that a person would feel hungry. It's possible that you might be a little bit lethargic because you don't have as much energy as you used to have. In that story, if you find yourself that you have too many carbs to get into fat storage, but yet not enough to fuel myself, what typically happens is that my body pushes me to eat. And unfortunately, we're still programmed to eat carbs, which is what you might do. This is one of the reasons that I find it's a little bit difficult to try to ease into keto, because at some point you're going to end up at that imbalance. Unfortunately, easing into keto can also reinforce that idea that I can't give up. So as I just mentioned, you're kind of in between the amount of carbs you need to fuel your day, but yet not really tapping into the fat storage. So when I do feel like I want to eat, I'm being pushed to eat carby things. And it just reinforces this idea that there's no way that I could ever give up bread. There's no way I could ever give up, right? Because I want a sandwich when I feel hungry, or I want to eat some fries. Now, the other issue that I see is that when I try to ease into keto, if for some reason it occurs to me, well, eat something more fatty rather than eat something carby, the problem there is that I'm still eating too many carbs for me to be able to add fat yet. And so sometimes what happens is that we have an increase in weight. And then if I have an increase in weight and I haven't even fully become keto yet, unfortunately, I'm going to feel like this diet doesn't work because I'm treating it like a diet at that point in time because it's not a lifestyle yet. This diet doesn't work and I might give up. So let's compare this to when we decide to jump into keto. One of the first things that you're going to notice is that if you jump into keto, once you get past the keto flu, which takes about 4 days, the way that you see food changes. Those 20 grams of carbs, your focus becomes how can I keep them nutrient dense and healthy with minerals? So I'm actually looking at what's the best quality of carbs I should be eating because I know I'm only going to eat 20 grams. I feel like this mindset really does help the people who jump in to be successful. The truth is, if I know in my entire day I'm having 20 grams of carbs, the chance that I'm going to give 10 of those grams of carbs or even 5 of those grams of carbs to a cookie is very low because I know that I won't have a lot of space left for whatever else I want to eat today, right? A slice of bread, that's 3/4 of my daily allowance. When we allow ourselves to focus on just doing it, then how we use those 20 grams, we pay a lot more attention to that. Now, the good thing about that is as I'm eating throughout my day, because I'm allowing myself to focus on nutrient-dense carbs, I'm going to allow myself to eat leafy green vegetables, to eat salads, to eat the foods that are going to be higher in fats because I'm going to get my energy from there. That's the other part of the story, is that we start to realize I'm not relying on carbs anymore for energy. My focus goes to relying on my fats for energy and choosing appropriate fats that are going to help me to fuel my body. All of a sudden, the way that I see food as fuel rather than seeing food as emotional support, rather than seeing food as fun, rather than seeing food as something that I do to socialize, I see it to fuel myself. That takes the front stage. The other positive is that when you eat 20 grams of carbs in a day, your body is much more quick to adjust to the idea of using fats for fuel. What that means is that period of time when we do that slow descent into ketosis, where we're fighting ourselves on wanting to eat carbs and we don't believe we'll ever be able to give it up, well, because we've jumped in, our body right away, well, not, I shouldn't say right away, but almost immediately switches over to fat burning, and our cravings diminish ridiculously quickly. And so all of a sudden, we are no longer being pulled back towards carbohydrates. Now, this is very helpful for those of us who have a sweet tooth. This is very important for those of us who were using food as emotional support, because at least the physical craving, so the addictive part of the food, is no longer there. So we can actually allow ourselves to notice when emotionally we're turning towards food, because actually we don't feel hungry. So it becomes very obvious to us that we were doing that because of an emotional reason. When we're trying to figure out if we're going to jump into keto or if we're going to slowly ease into keto, our personality plays a big role. And I feel like one of the things that I've noticed is that people who are able to take responsibility for their behavior. So, what that means, if I'm able to look at my life and recognize that I've allowed myself to eat a lot of carbs, even if I didn't know it was addictive, now understanding that it's addictive, if I can actually accept that, okay, that's something that I have been doing, then it also allows me to realize that if I keep doing it, so now I have this information, if I keep doing it, then I'm the one keeping myself at this weight. When people accept responsibility for how their eating habits today affect how their body will be built tomorrow, and they accept that responsibility, then they're much more likely to stick to the eating habits that cause them to have better health. And that might mean, regardless of whether you jump in or not, that if you choose to do it, you're going to push through whatever obstacles happen in front of you. So taking responsibility for your actions has a big impact on whether or not you're successful in adopting a ketogenic lifestyle. Are you educating yourself? Are you actually trying to understand how food affects your body? By educating myself, then I start to understand what carbohydrates do in the body, what fats do in the body, and what proteins do in the body. When I know this information, the choices I make about food are different. When I know this information, the type of fuel that I choose to build the body for tomorrow is different. In order for me to be responsible, going back to my first point, I have to also understand what the food that I'm eating does to my body, how my body reacts to the food. I need to understand that connection. So by allowing myself to learn, which means reading, which means watching videos like this, which means doing things that I haven't done before because I wasn't aware that carbohydrates were causing the issue to begin with. Or maybe I wasn't aware that I was overeating those carbohydrates. Or maybe I wasn't aware that I was addicted to carbohydrates. But regardless, if I wasn't aware then, but I become aware now, then it becomes my job, because my mental health and my physical health are my responsibility. It becomes my job to do what I can to educate myself so I can do better in the future. Related to the previous point, what's my reason for trying to lose weight? What's my goal? Why am I doing any of this? Why am I looking at the ketogenic diet? If my reason for trying to lose weight is because I'm trying to find a spouse, if my reason for trying to lose weight is because I'm trying to get ready for bikini season, if my reason for trying to lose weight is that I don't like the way people have been looking at me, if my reason to lose weight is external to me, then my ability to adhere to a lifestyle that's healthier is not going to be there. If I want to be able to do something forever, then the reason that I'm doing it has to be internal. Make your reason for change about your health, not about what other people think, not about proving something to somebody else. Make your reason for doing this about feeling better. Make your reason for doing this about living longer, being able to play with your grandchildren. Make it about internal, important reasons for you. My reason for doing this was because I love sports and I had no way to solve this hip issue other than, oh my God, take the carbs out. And I did. And I've maintained it because guess what? Even at the smallest amount of going over 20 grams of carbs for me, it might not be the case for you, but for me, if I go over 20 grams of carbs, my hip starts to bother me again. I understand that the amount of carbohydrates that I've been eating have been too much. So I'm doing everything that I can to solve this situation. But it needed that. It needed it for it to be an internal reason for me. I want to thank you for watching Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please subscribe, and I can't wait to talk to you in the next video.